I just released an updated version of the Do-It-Yourself Investor Toolkit 7.0, and I'm really excited about some of the new features that I've been adding to this spreadsheet. This is the exact same sheet that I use to track my personal portfolio, so in this video, I'm going to be revealing the new features and showing you exactly how this tool works. And like always, if you'd like to be able to download any of my spreadsheets, then you can head over to tickerdata.com at the link in the description. So let's go ahead and start diving into it. Now, like I just mentioned, this is the exact same spreadsheet I use to track my personal portfolio. It tracks everything personally that I could ever want to see. We have our investment dashboard, we have our dividend dashboard, we have a dividend calendar, daily dividend calendar, a place to track our stocks, to track our crypto. And if we come over here, we can see our sold positions. We have our sold positions. We even have an automated stock watch list. We have a place to project what our future portfolio will look like. We can insert our cost of living to see how it will change over time. And then most importantly, in my opinion, we have our live off dividends analysis that'll tell us exactly how long it will take for us to live off dividends. I think this is a very important feature. So I know this looks like a lot, but I'm going to break it down. It's really not that complicated because pretty much this entire spreadsheet is completely automated. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit and start talking about some of this. First off, we can see we have 6 different stocks listed right here. We have 5 different American stocks, and then we have an Australian stock. So we can track all international stocks right here in one place. So how does that work? Because there are currency differences as well that we have to take into account. Well, this spreadsheet can now do that for you automatically, and I'm going to go ahead and show you why. Now, keep in mind, to use this spreadsheet, we have to download the Ticker Data add-on in Google Sheets. And again, if you become a member over on tickerdata.com, that's one of the things you get access to. But if we come over here to extensions and look at Ticker Data right here, we can log into Ticker Data, and then we'll come down here and click on refresh and return to sheet, and you can see it's going to say loading right here. And once I've done that, you can see all this data is now automatically loading in. So now we can see, again, this data automatically loaded in. We have price data, cost, market value, our dollar gain, growth, the amount paid to us in dividends, the dividend yield, the dividend income we receive from each individual position. We have their industry. We have our total return as a dollar amount and the total return as a percentage. And then we have all these metrics here kind of in a simple dashboard. But here's what's really cool. Again, we can select the currency we want all of this to come out in. So despite the fact that I have 5 US stocks and an Australian stock, we can make all of this into the exact same currency. So for example, if I come over here and plug in euros, plug in EUR and hit enter, and you can see all this data is going to automatically update to show the values in euros. Maybe I want to see it in USD. I can plug in USD here. Again, that's all going to automatically update. We can look at it in Canadian dollars. If I plug in CAD, again, it will automatically update. So that's a very powerful update that I know a lot of people will be really excited about. Now let's go ahead and keep moving forward and talking about this stocks page and how it works. Now the other thing we can manually plug in here is enter our cash position. This is just a simple way to say how much cash are you currently sitting on that you could invest into different stocks. So let's say I currently have around $7,000 in cash. I can plug that in right here, and now if we jump back over to our investment dashboard, you can see our cash position right here showing $7,000, and our allocation is updated as well. So we could see in this example, we'd have about $3,241 in stocks and our cash position at $7,000, which would be around 68% of our entire portfolio. So a pretty cool way to simply update our allocation. Now let's go ahead and jump back over to our stocks tab again. Now that we can track all international stocks, how exactly can we do that? How do we plug in different international stocks? Well, we talk about how to do this over on tickerdata.com a little bit. If we come over here to docs, scroll down and click on Ticker Data Exchanges and click on Exchanges pages, we can see all these different countries and exchanges that we can pull in stock information from. It's from all across the world. We have over 70 plus different stock exchanges that you can pull in straight into your spreadsheet. So let's go ahead and look at an example. Let's say we want to pull in a stock, for example, maybe from Greece. I actually don't even know what this company is, but let's use this company as an example. The company ticker is ELHA. If we go back over to our spreadsheet, I'll plug in ELHA right here and hit enter. And one of the things you'll notice is this data is going to automatically start to load in. Now, currently we're getting an error. Now, why is this? Well, we need to indicate what country this stock is from. And you can see the extension for Greece is showing .AT. So that's the Athens Stock Exchange. So if we go back over to our spreadsheet, come up here and plug in .AT and hit enter. And again, you can see this data is automatically loaded in. So we've been able to successfully pull in the stock data for this stock from Greece. Now, what we want to do now is simply plug in the total amount of shares we bought in this example and the purchase price. So let's go ahead and say we bought 5 different shares. And let's say our purchase price was around $2 per share. I'll plug in $2 right here and hit enter. And so now you can see all of our stock data has automatically updated. And keep in mind, it's showing all this data in US dollars since we selected USD as our currency. So now if we jump back over to our investment dashboard, we can see the stock we just bought, ELHA, is represented in our cost and market value, in our growth tab, and in all of our other charts as well. And it's obviously accounted for in these metrics here, showing us our portfolio value metrics. Now, one of the questions I get from time to time is, how do we add the same stock twice if we purchase it at 2 different times? Well, that's fairly simple. Let's say I bought 2 more shares later on. All I need to do is simply update the total amount of shares I own. So I'll plug in 7 right here and then update my purchase price. Maybe I bought this stock on a dip later on. So now my average purchase price is 1.9. I'll just update this here and hit enter. Again, all of this data is going to automatically update, and so is all of the data on our investment dashboard. Now, a lot of the data will automatically update on our dividend dashboard as well, so we can see things like our dividend income by industry is going to automatically update. So is our dividend yield on cost. So again, like I've said so many times before, much of this process is completely automated. Let's go ahead and test out our select currency option. Again, let's look at it in Canadian dollars. I'll plug in CAD, jump back over to our investment dashboard, and we can see all of these metrics here have again been automatically updated. So this is a very cool new feature. So that's the main new feature. You can track any international stock simply and adjust the currency. So again, you can track all international stocks in one place in your portfolio. That's a really good update. And let me tell you why. When I look at all of these different brokerages, this is not something they allow you to do. Almost all the brokerages I have personally used, which is over 10, don't do a good job of providing insights into your personal portfolio. It's hard to look at a lot of the metrics that I personally want to see, and obviously doing something like selecting the currency is not something that any brokerage I know of has the ability to do. So let's go ahead and keep moving forward and talk about some of the other features. Now, one of the other updates I made is to our cost of living and our live off dividends analysis, and this was a relatively simple one, but it was a much needed one. If we come over here and look at the date, we can now see we're using a formula that does equals today open parentheses, and then below that we have a formula I plugged in, and I'm going to explain exactly what's going on here. It's relatively simple. Basically, it's taking what today's date is. So at the time I'm recording this, it is April 28th, 2024. And basically what's happening, the formula below this is adding 1 month to this every single time we go down. So basically the purpose behind this is we'll no longer ever have to update the date manually. Every single time we come in here, these dates are going to be updated manually. And the same is true for our live off dividends analysis and our portfolio projection tab as well. These dates will never have to be updated. So when we look at our live off dividends analysis tab, not only is the year and amount of time going to be accurate, but the actual date of these metrics here is going to be accurate as well without any manual entry. So that's a pretty nice update. Now let's go ahead and talk more about the actual features that we're tracking with our do-it-yourself investor toolkit and how to use all of them. And I'll go over some of these briefly because some of it's pretty self-explanatory. Now again, we're looking at the investment dashboard here. If we start at the top and work our way down, I'll zoom in. Basically, we have a lot of portfolio tracking metrics here: portfolio value, portfolio cost, our dollar gain and percentage gain loss. We have our realized gains. So that's basically going to tell us, based off the stocks we've already bought and sold, what is our realized gains. If we come over here, you can see we have a sold positions tab, and again, completely automated. All we need to do is plug in the stock that we sold, the amount of shares we sold, what our purchase price was, and what our sales price was, and all this data is going to automatically update. We have a pretty simple dashboard you can see up here, and then that's going to be reflected in our realized gains right here. Down here, we have our dollar gain and loss with dividends included and realized gains, and our percent gain and loss with dividends included and our realized gains. If we come over here, we can see a simple stock breakdown. We have a simple crypto breakdown, which I'll touch on in just a second. Then we have our cash position like we just talked about, and we can see our allocation chart will update automatically based off those things. Now let's take a moment and talk about crypto. With a new ticker data add-on in Google Sheets, crypto tracking has become unbelievably simple. So I'm super excited about that. Let's talk about exactly how this works. This is another one of the nice updates. If we come up here, we can plug in BTC for Bitcoin if we bought Bitcoin. I personally don't hold any Bitcoin, but let's say we bought 0.05 Bitcoin at a purchase price of $50,000. I'll just plug in those metrics, and again, all of this data is going to automatically load in. We even have the live current trading price for Bitcoin. We have our cost, our market value, our dollar gain, and our growth. So again, very simple. Let's do the same thing for Ethereum. Maybe I bought Ethereum and I bought 0.3 Ethereum at a purchase price of about $3,000. Again, all this data is going to automatically load in. So if we jump back over to our investment dashboard now, we can see this crypto tab has been automatically updated, and so has our allocation chart. So in this example, we're now 22% in stocks, 29% in crypto, and our cash position sitting at about 48.5. And you can also see our new crypto positions are also included in our cost and market value chart and our growth chart, also in these charts here, basically showing how we are properly diversified. So let's go ahead and zoom out again, start talking about some of these other features. Down here, we basically have a place that shows us the total amount of holdings in our personal portfolio. Up here, we basically have some quick notes that we can add as reminders to ourselves. So that's kind of a feature if you want to plug in things there. Down here, we have our future portfolio outlook, and I'm going to touch on this quite a bit more in just a little bit, but basically we can see what our future portfolio outlook will look like based on different projections we can plug in, and we can also toggle between not reinvesting dividends and reinvesting dividends. So for example, if we plan on reinvesting our dividends, we can come up here and click this and see how our portfolio will look like in the future. And if we're not reinvesting dividends, we can come here and click this, and then this will update automatically. So I think that's a pretty cool feature and a pretty quick way to see exactly where you should be at, project where you'll be at in the near future. Now, like I've already touched on here, we have our cost and market value chart and our growth chart, just so we can see the growth of our different positions. We come over here, we can see how markets have been moving. We can see today's price for these different indices right here. We have our days change as a percentage. So for example, maybe I want to see something like the S&P 500. I could click here and see how that's been moving over the past couple of years and the metrics for today. Come up here, we can see all of our allocation by each individual position. So in this example, Bitcoin would make up around 42.8%. Keep in mind, this does not include my cash position here. Ethereum at about 13.3, Apple at about 22.8, and so on. So again, just a way to see how you're allocated to these different positions. Scroll down, and now we have our stock allocation by individual industry. I think this is a really important one that a lot of people don't seem to track for some reason, because obviously you don't want to be too concentrated to any one single industry. So for example, we could see in this example, technology would be around 52% of my entire portfolio, and so on. Now, the last chart we have over here, if I zoom out just a little bit, we're going to be able to see my total loss amount versus my total win amount. So that's basically telling me how much I have in gains and how much I have in losses out of my current positions. So pretty self-explanatory there and a pretty cool little feature. But that's basically all the features on our investment dashboard. Let's go ahead and keep moving forward and talking about our dividend dashboard. Now, for our dividend dashboard to completely fill out, there's a couple of things we have to do. Now, we can see here, most of this is completely automated. And again, it's going to tell us things like expected yearly dividend income, all-time dividend income, average monthly dividends, and portfolio dividend yield. We can see our dividend income by each individual stock. We can see our projected annual dividend income, dividend yield on cost, historical monthly dividend income, our portfolio value over time, and our dividend income by industry. Now, this is a bigger one than a lot of people realize, because if you're a dividend investor, you don't want all of your dividend income coming from any one single place. So in this example, we can see real estate would make up around 56% of my dividend income. I would argue that's going to be too high for most dividend investors. Now, keep in mind, again, this is just an example, but I personally would not want that much of my dividend income coming from real estate. Now, in order for our historical monthly dividend income and our portfolio value to update, what we're going to need to do is something pretty simple. We go over to our dividend portfolio recording tab. You come over here and simply plug in your historical dividend payments, your portfolio value, and you can also plug in your projected annual dividend income. This is something that maybe takes me just 2 or 3 minutes every single month. You can basically copy and paste it in from your brokerage. But again, I have some example data here just for this example, and you can see I plugged in this data, and that is what's filling out things like our projected annual dividend income, our historical monthly dividend income, and our portfolio value over time. So pretty cool little feature there. Now let's go ahead and keep moving forward. And the next 2 things we're gonna look at are some features I'm super excited about. I think they're very important and they get missed out on by a lot of investors. If we zoom in here, we can see we have what's known as a dividend calendar. And unfortunately, a lot of dividend investors don't use a dividend calendar, but they should be. And let me tell you why. There's a couple of reasons this is important. First off, we can easily see out of the positions we have listed here, these are all automatically showing up from our stocks tab. So anytime you plug in a position in your stocks tab, it's going to automatically show up on your dividend calendar. And here on our dividend calendar, it's going to automatically pull in all the dividend payments you received from these positions based off what you plugged in the dividend portfolio recording tab. So what this allows you to do is see how much each of these positions have paid you in total since you've bought them, and you can see how much you've made every single month in dividend income. Both of those are very important features, but here's what's really important about this. It allows you to see how your dividend payments are growing over time. And for example, realty income is usually the one I point out as an example. Realty income pays out dividends every single month, and they increase the amount they pay out in dividends every single quarter. And obviously, if you're a dividend investor, you should be reinvesting those dividends under most circumstances. So because of that, those dividend payments are going to continue to increase every single month. So for example, in this example in January of 22, you received $5.83, but the next month $5.85, next month $5.87, and the next month $5.91, and so on. So you can see as we go on, these dividend payments are getting larger and larger in this example. So again, dividend calendar is a very good way to track your dividend income over time. Now the next thing we have here is going to be our daily dividend calendar, and I'll zoom out just a little bit so we can see this better. But this basically tells us how much we were paid in dividend income on each individual day. So for example, if we scroll down, here's a 2022 dividend calendar. It tells us what days we were paid dividends and how much we were paid. It tells us our highest day and the total amount we were paid in dividends on that day. Same thing for 2023 and for 2024. And again, all this data is going to be derived from our dividend portfolio recording tab. Now the next feature of our do-it-yourself investor toolkit is one I think is pretty cool, and it's going to be our stock watch list. I'll go ahead and zoom in just a little bit more. And this is a pretty simple one, but it can be very effective. Here's exactly how it works. All we have to do is plug in the stock ticker that we want to add to our stock watch list. So in this example, let's say maybe we want to add a stock like Pepsi to our stock watch list. I'll plug in PEP here and hit enter, and you can see all this data is going to automatically load in. We have the price, the dividend yield, and the payout ratio for this company. Now let's say I performed a stock valuation on this company and I decided their intrinsic value was sitting at about $200 per share. I'll come over here and plug in 200 and hit enter. Now something's happened here. It's giving me a buy signal and telling me that with my intrinsic value plus margin of safety, my acceptable buy price is $180 per share. And because this acceptable buy price is higher than the current trading price, it's giving me the buy signal. Now, the intrinsic value plus margin of safety is obviously coming from the intrinsic value we calculated, plus the margin of safety I have plugged in right here. If I'm a more conservative investor, maybe I want to plug in a 20% margin of safety and hit enter. And you can see all these metrics here are going to automatically update based off my margin of safety. So now it's telling me my acceptable buy price for Pepsi is $160 per share, which is below the current trading price, so I'm no longer getting a buy signal. So this is a cool way to see exactly when you think personally based off your assumptions, it could be a good time to buy a stock. Now, moving forward, the last things we're going to look at are going to be our portfolio projection tab, cost of living, and live off dividends analysis. And all of this goes together, and it's pretty simple. It's based off all the variables that we plug in right here, essentially. So let's go ahead and talk about this for an example. If we jump over to our live off dividends analysis, I'll zoom in over here, and we can see the different things we can see. We have our year, we have our date, monthly cost of living, monthly dividends, can you live off dividends, monthly contribution, total dividends, and account value. Again, all this is derived from our portfolio projection. So let's go ahead and talk about these variables. Basically, what we have to do is plug in our starting portfolio size. So let's say in this example, we're starting with a portfolio size of $20,000. I'll plug in 20,000 right here. And then we have to make some assumptions about how our portfolio will grow over time. Now, personally, I go with a price growth rate of around 7% and a dividend growth rate of around 7%. And honestly, I could be a little bit more aggressive with those assumptions because when you look at how dividend growth ETFs like SCHD have performed over the past decade, they've actually done quite a bit better than that, but I prefer to be a little more conservative with my projections. Now, if you're someone buying high yielding dividend stocks, maybe you're going to assume a lower price growth rate, a lower dividend growth rate, but a higher starting dividend yield. So let's go ahead and plug in our starting dividend yield. And this example, we can just go over to our dividend dashboard and we can see the dividend yield of this portfolio sitting at 4.09%. So what I can do now is I can jump back over to my portfolio projection and plug in 4.09%. So because in this example, we have a higher starting dividend yield, maybe I assume a dividend growth rate of about 5% and a price growth rate of about 5%. Now, the starting share price is not something you have to adjust. This is simply a way to perform this projection. So again, you don't have to change this number. But then we come over here and now we need to say, are we making a one-time lump sum contribution or are we making monthly contributions? Because if you're making lump sum contributions, you're going to pretty much have this number listed out as 0 right here, meaning your starting portfolio size is all you're going to have invested. But if you plan on making monthly contributions, which I think is wise for most people, you're going to want this to show monthly, and then you're going to list the average monthly contribution you're going to have. So in this example, let's say our monthly contribution is around $750. Let's bump it up a little bit more. Let's say $1,250. So based off this, all of this data right here has automatically updated. So if we go ahead and zoom out, the very last step we need to do is jump over to our cost of living tab. And this is very simple. All we need to do is plug in what we expect our average monthly cost of living to be right now, and then what we expect the average inflation rate to be over a 30-year time period. So maybe you look at your expenses and say, okay, I think my cost of living right now is sitting at about $3,750. So we plug that in and we can see this black line automatically updates. The reason it goes up is because inflation compounds over time just like any other investment. So that's why it's important to plug in our average inflation rate. And historically speaking, this has been around 2 or 3%. Obviously, over the last few years, it's been quite a bit higher than that. But maybe you want to be close to the middle of that. Let's go with an average inflation rate of around 2.25%. You can see this means if our cost of living right now is around $3,750 in 30 years, our cost of living would jump up to around $7,310. That's a pretty big difference, obviously. So now if we jump over to our Live Off Dividends Analysis tab, we can tie all this together. Our black line is our monthly cost of living and the red line is our average monthly dividend payments. So the point at which the red line passes the black line is the point at which we would be able to live off dividend payments forever. And if we come over here, we can get a detailed analysis of exactly when this happens and what's going on. So let's go ahead and start looking at this. When this says, can you live off dividends? Yes, that's obviously the point at which we could live off dividends because our monthly dividends surpasses our monthly cost of living. So let's go ahead and scroll down in this example and see exactly when that happens. And in this example, it looks like it happens right here. It would take around 27 years to be able to live off dividends because that's the point at which our monthly dividends would surpass our monthly cost of living. So we could see the exact date at which that would happen, how long it would take. We can see during that time period what our total contribution would be, what the total amount we've received in dividends is, and what our account value would be. So in this example, our account value could be around $2 million, and the total amount of dividends we'd receive over this time, $735,000. And just to quickly show you the power of compounding, our total contribution during that time would only be around $433,000. So again, pretty nice returns in this example from just contributing $433,000. So there you go. That is the do-it-yourself investor toolkit and some of the really neat updates I'm very excited about. Now, like I just mentioned, you can download this spreadsheet by becoming a premium member on tickerdata.com. And once you've done that, it's very easy to access my library of spreadsheets. You just come up here and click on premium sheets. And once you've done that, you can see we have an entire library of tons of different spreadsheets that I've been building out over the period of the past 3 years, and I have many more spreadsheets that I'm planning on adding in the very near future, which I'm very excited about. And keep in mind, if you ever see errors on the spreadsheet, likely all you need to do is come up here and click on extensions, click on Ticker Data add-on, and just click on log in, and then just come down here and click on refresh and return to sheet, and that will pretty much fix any of the errors that you're seeing in your spreadsheet because it's going to automatically update everything. So again, that is the do-it-yourself investor toolkit. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Again, you can download any of my spreadsheets on tickerdata.com. And like always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel.